Let's get this shit
Right,
going.
you're feeling it.
You're feeling it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like you wanted to fucking run through a wall or some shit.
Oh, yeah.
That's how I feel right
With
now.
the underlying anxiety, the whole shebang.
Oh, yeah. We suppressed that shit.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just fucking with you. That's mental health awareness month, I think is what it is.
Oh,
right?
really? I was going to say, man, I give myself...
I don't know
I give myself caffeine-induced anxiety. I don't have anxiety, but I have too much caffeine, and it gives me anxiety. I'm like, man, why did I do this to myself? I didn't have any. And I gave myself some? What the fuck?
But isn't that what makes you feel alive a little bit, though? It's like,
hey, man, sometimes it gets bad, but I'm a bit caffeine sensitive. I just fuck
We're the opposite, though. I don't drink caffeine. We're similar in a lot of ways. That's the one area we differ.
I drink caffeine, but I'm caffeine sensitive, but it doesn't stop me from drinking too much.
You know what But you know how, speaking of mental health, I never understood, like...
Wait, that is month?
Apparently.
Okay. But like just in general.
But why is there? But like something about America specific? I don't know how that is in other countries because we don't only live where we're at. But it's like, you hear like, oh, it's mental health awareness month or something. It's like, why is it not 12 months a year, 360? Why is there a month for that? Like, we throw in all these different races and stuff. Like, oh, it's Middle Eastern month, or actually we don't have.
I was about to say that's not a real thing.
No, we have AAPIs, the Asian American Pacific Islander, which we lump that in together, and we can.
Wait, that they get a month? I thought it was only Black History Month.
There's Black History Month.
I thought I was the only one.
There's the Latino Hispanic History Month.
What month is that?
Fuck, I don't know, man.
Are you making all this up, man?
No, I swear to God. But the Middle Easterns, like you and I, we don't get a month.
Okay.
We don't get a month. We don't get a month.
I didn't think anyone did, but other than Black History Month.
No, so the ironic part is the Asians and the Pacific Islanders they lump together, even though a Samoan and a Korean are two totally different things. They get 1 month.
Okay.
They're like, we don't have apparently they're not enough months to separate them, but they get 1 month.
They decide to consolidate.
They consolidate, even though there's nothing similar between like, a dude from Fiji and a dude from China. They're nothing alike, but we lump them together.
All right.
There's no Middle Eastern month, even though like there's a difference between a Persian and
Arab,
and then within the Arab community, there's a difference between like Saudi and Dubai or something like that.
They're from different parts, right?
They're from different parts.
And even if you're Muslim, you could be Sunni.
You can Sunni or Shia, but we throw that shit in there in America. We're like, you get a, y'all get a month, and then the Middle Easterns don't get a month. But like,
so tell me, who gets a month?
Everybody that isn't white and isn't Middle Eastern.
Really?
Apparently, potentially. But then
did you learn this in grade school or something? Because I missed out on this lesson.
Sports.
Really?
Sports, dude. All these guys, the NBA, they have like the Noches NBA or whatever, and then Black History Month. That's the only reason I know.
I know Black History Month and the NBA.
That's the only reason I know.
I also know what October breast cancer awareness, right?
Oh, NFL. There you go.
They wear pink.
So that's the only reason. Just sports marketing. That's the only reason I know.
I mean, I know sports
because like in sports, because in sports, like you got to think in sports, we're always talking about like propaganda and shit, right? Like, like in sports and with marketing and shit and propaganda, like we got to pretend that we give a fuck about these people, even though the money makers don't care. They just want to pretend that they do to make money. So it's like, oh, we care about Asians and Pacific Islanders, even though we can't separate the fact that they're two totally different people. We're gonna lump them together because we want your money. Oh, Black History Month. We love, Asian. And Noches NBA. I don't know. I honestly don't know I don't know if it's Latino, Latina, Hispanic. They call it something.
I didn't know it existed. Yeah,
it does.
I'm apparently very ignorant.
Listen, you're not ignorant. You're normal because you don't look at it in terms of like branches of people. We don't look at people like that. But this is how the money makers and the businesses and the corporations look at it. And then obviously all these different like all the holidays are money makers, right?
Oh yeah,
like fucking Valentine's Day. The fuck you mean I don't love you 364 days out of the year and this is the only day I'm supposed to give a fuck? The fuck you mean? Birthdays even are fucking, it's like, what do you mean? You didn't care about me the other 364 days out of the year? Now you give a fuck? Because I was born on this day and I made 365 days around the sun? Now you give a fuck? Come on, man. That's money making. Even fucking Christmas. Christmas is just a money maker.
Christmas is a money machine.
Christmas is just a money maker. The December to remember, fucking Toyota's making $1 bajillion with the December to remember and the Toyotathon. So that's the same thing. Like we found a way in society, we have found a way to monopolize and monetize anything. Like you can make money on anything. You can make money on people dying.
Oh yeah.
That's fucking crazy.
Even think about like the prediction markets and everything.
Oh, yeah, you can bet money. You can bet money on who's gonna get assassinated first, like.
And then a star player of the NBA, shout out Giannis.
Sponsored
by them.
Oh yeah.
I mean, the concept of that, let's say 15 years ago, would have been unfathomable. Like completely out of bounds.
But the the genie's out of the bottle.
It's been out of the bottle.
Like you've got to
get old news at this point.
Oh yeah.
I don't even know why I'm bringing it up.
No, it is worth bringing up because like I don't think a lot of people really fully grasp because they don't talk about it. We're going to talk about it right now. Actually, we weren't planning to do this either.
It just happens.
But with Giannis, bro, we're going to talk about that right now. Actually, this motherfucker with the plugged-in media sources that we're going to get into with we're going to talk about the Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel thing later, even though that's a little bit quote-unquote old news. There's a part of that maybe hasn't been talked about we'll get into. And I just think it's so fucking fascinating, bro, because it's like with Giannis, right? You've got all these different publications with sources and all the same. You've got ESPN, and then you've got your individual sources. So you got your Shams Charanias of the world. You've got your other beat writers and whatnot. And then you've got like the Mark Steins of the world, for example. Shout out Fullerton. He's a Cal State alum. Cal State Fullerton alum. Go Titans, baby. And he's on Substack.
There we go.
So we're on the same platform as a guy who's fucking putting out legitimate propaganda pieces from Cal State Fullerton. You know what I mean? Like he walks so we can run. Shout out Mark Stein. You know what I mean? So, like, all these guys, and even I think today, like, Mark Stein put out a thing on his Substack, which you have to pay for, by the way. We don't charge people to do that. But there's a website. I won't give it away so they don't get infringed of any kind. There's a website that aggregates all the information of all these different basketball analysis, and it puts it in one place. That's the one free ad I won't give because I love that place too much to give it away.
Okay.
And they aggregate.
Keep it that close to the chest.
Yeah. And they aggregate literally any article, any YouTube video, anything. It aggregates it and puts it in one place.
Wow.
Any tweet, anything. Like, I'm not even on social media. It puts
every AI. Do you know how it works?
I have no idea. It's just they just put it all together. It aggregates literally everything, whether you pay for it or not.
Wow.
And it aggregates a little
We'll talk offline about that.
Yeah, we'll talk offline about it. So it puts all these, transactions, basically that's where I get my basketball news from. Is from that particular website. Any rumor, anything, because it aggregates everything. And that's where we're going to talk about Mark Stein, we'll talk about Giannis. So every day, brother, like if I go on that website every day, and I do that every day because I'm sick like that and I got nothing better to do with my time. I go in there every day. And I'm reading through all this shit, all the different publications, a lot of propaganda, and then players and agents and media, it's everybody, transcripts, all that bullshit, and all this talk about Giannis. Not even before today, but like long before. And it's like, oh, it's when you get in when you're in elementary school and you have a little, what do they call it, the clover, and you start plucking off, does she love me? Does she love me not? Does she love me on the flower? And then whichever one you end on is whether she loves you or not. That's like, is Giannis going to get traded or not? And
I feel like at this point getting traded. Well, how about this? We'll know if he signs the extension because Haslam pretty much this week said as much.
Today, he came out. He's like, before the draft, either we're trading him or we're keeping him.
And isn't he eligible before the draft?
But Giannis has been doing the same bullshit.
When's the extension eligible? Do you know? I don't know. Is it before the draft? Because I assume it all hinges on his extension. Like
it's always money.
If he rejects the extension, they have to trade him because he's signaling, "I'm not going to be here."
So
they need to get something.
He's not extension eligible until October, if I'm not mistaken, and we can fact check that.
October, isn't that when the season starts?
Yeah, and that's why a lot of times you don't see a lot of player movement until the season starts in those types of cases. But okay, so I don't want to
ask him for like a verbal commitment.
Perhaps, but you brought it up, and we don't want to get sidetracked. I mean, obviously, it's the beauty of our conversations. We go all over the place. But you mentioned, for example, like Giannis and Kaushi, right? Yep. So there's all these different rumors, all these different publications of different people. One day he's going to get traded, the next day he's staying, and it just keeps changing every day, depending on what you read, who you listen to, what you want to believe. It's changing every day. And then as the trade deadline approaches, obviously on Kaushi, which is a prediction market, which is separate from sports betting, which is its own can of worms,
That is part of their bet during the trade deadline was,
is he going to get traded?
Is Giannis going to get traded?
Right. And you can bet on that.
And I'm pretty sure it was his announcement, his commercial went live for Kalshi.
The day after the trade. It was literally the day after the trade deadline. Literally one day after. It
was on purpose.
It was on purpose. And if you'll remember, that same week, not even 24 to 48 hours beforehand, the odds on Kalshi specifically, the most popularly traded thing on Kalshi was Giannis getting traded.
Whoa. I mean, that makes sense, though.
And then 24, 48 hours later, literally a day after the trade deadline, Giannis puts out a tweet where, hey, I'm joining Kalshi. And now he's got the commercials you can see on TV. Now, listen, I don't want to be a guy who peddles conspiracy theories. Separate tangent. We came on here a couple weeks ago and we talked about the great tanking controversy of 2026, which we're gonna do. We're gonna do a part 2 of. You know, it's like the South Park episode.
Which one?
The 9/11 conspiracy one.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like the government conspiracy is a government conspiracy because the government wants people to believe that the government has the power to do that sort of thing, and that's the episode. Yep. It's kind of like the NBA lottery in many ways. But then on the flip side, so it's like a 2-coin argument because with like the NBA lottery, we talked a lot about like the frozen envelope thing with Patrick Ewing and the Knicks, but we didn't even mention in that recording. And it's just, look, I'm not saying it's rigged or it's not. I want to peddle conspiracy theories, but I'll just let people make their own conclusions, coincidence or not. Like LeBron James, Akron, Ohio, goes to Cleveland. That's one thing. Okay, you want to believe that coincidence? Okay,
stuff happens.
Shit happens. LeBron leaves Cleveland, goes to Miami.
And what do they get the next year, Ryan?
So Cleveland gets 3 number one overall. Number one overall.
On that, Ryan?
There's a higher likelihood that you get hit by a bus and have an orgy in the same night.
That might be true.
Yeah,
you
get hit by a bus that's going full speed, you recover, and you have an orgy. There's a higher likelihood
within like a 6-hour span.
Yeah, there's a higher likelihood that you get hit by lightning and your dick gets hard simultaneously.
Is that how that works?
Apparently, it could be a kink. But my point is this: okay, Cleveland gets 3 number one overall picks, 2 of which that get traded for LeBron, and the other one plays with LeBron. And so Anthony Bennett, quote unquote, big draft bust, he gets traded for LeBron with Andrew Wiggins, to Cleveland, and then you've got Kyrie Irving, which plays with LeBron. You've got examples of Derrick Rose grows up in Chicago. The Bulls magically jump up the lottery, gets drafted by the Bulls, and we'll talk about the Bulls one of these days, maybe today, who knows? It could be. We got to edge it a little bit, but okay. Anthony Davis gets traded to the Lakers. Zion goes to the Pelicans over your Knicks.
I remember that vividly. I was pissed.
Cooper Flag.
I was pissed. I mean, hindsight.
So look,
glad we didn't get Zion, but still.
So look, these are all. I don't want to peddle conspiracy theories, but it goes back to Giannis because with Giannis. Okay, just conveniently, no conspiracy theory. Just conveniently, they could have easily waited till like after the season, like in the summertime. No, the day after the trade deadline. Giannis puts out a little tweet with him photoshopped in a Kalshi jersey with a little signature in the background. It's like, hey, I'm joining the team of Kalshi. It's time for everybody to do that. Listen, I don't want to peddle conspiracy theories, but you don't think there was this teensy tad bit of little market manipulation there? Like, somebody, look, I'm not saying.
I mean, who knows?
Who knows? Maybe not. But my point is like, you've got a professional athlete in a professional league who happens to be a guy who NBA media cannot get their they can't get his dick out of their mouths. Like
not at all.
Like it's always like it's the NBA fucking playoffs, and every day I got to read some shit about Giannis. The motherfucker hasn't played.
He didn't play this whole year.
He's not even on the court.
Did he even play 30 games this year? I don't think he did.
And all I hear about is Giannis. Who's going to trade for Giannis? It's like health is wealth. The most important skill in sports is availability. The number one ability is availability.
Absolutely.
He's not on the court. Talk to me when he's playing. Joel Embiid against your Knicks. We're going to set it up with the Knicks. Listen, Joel Embiid won a motherfucking MVP, and Jokic probably should have won that MVP too, by the way. And Embiid won. No, it's no disrespect.
Look, great year.
We'll talk about MVP. Like my guy D came on here talking about the Ballon d'Or. Who gives? And that's a soccer thing. You don't watch soccer. Like, I don't care who wins MVP. It doesn't matter to me. SGA, Giannis, all these. I don't care who wins fucking MVP because they're all great. MVP is a media award, and it's a controlled narrative of people who are media members that vote for it. We don't need to get into that. That's a separate can of worms. But and this would be a good way to segue into your Knicks. Like Embiid. Look, Embiid won an MVP. He's one of the probably 5 or 10 best players in the league when he's healthy.
But he's not even playing.
But he's not even in the series.
I mean, you know me, I'm not exactly mad about it.
No, of course not.
I wish him well, but not too quickly now. Not too quickly now. Take your time, big fella. You gotta take your time, big man. I want the Knicks to be out in 5. My gut tells me 6, but I want them out in 5.
Out meaning moving on to the next.
Moving on to the next. Yeah, of course.
I figured that was a good.
I want them out of the series, moving on to what looks to be Detroit in 5 games. I'm petrified of Detroit for obvious reasons. We lost to them several times in the regular season. Their physicality was, frankly, too much for us, which is a problem. So I'm not excited about that, but I do have hope because last year we lost to the Celtics. I think every matchup during the regular season came out 2-0, and I think beat them in 6 games.
No, granted.
Great result.
No, granted.
Great result.
Granted, Detroit and Boston. You mentioned Detroit. Like Detroit's basically in many ways they play a lot like an East Coast OKC in terms of the fact that their defensive strategy, which I give a lot of credit for, by the way, their defensive strategies. The referees are not going to call fouls on every single possession. So we're going to be physical, and referees oftentimes, especially in the NBA, will referee based on your reputation. So a lot, and that not only, so there's a big thing always that people talk about, like with individual players, and certain players get refereed different than others. Like there's a big hoopla about SGA and how he gets officiated because he gets to the free throw line a lot of times.
They call him a free throw merchant.
And they call him a free throw merchant. And, SGA comes out, and I'm actually pretty sure today he came out and they're like, hey, what do you have to say about that? He's like, look, it's simple. The best scorer, I get to the free throw line. Like, it's not that complicated. Like, I get to the foul line, whatever. You've got guys like Jaylen Brown and Donovan Mitchell and all these guys and Devin Booker, many players. They complain like, hey, I don't get to the free throw line. I get fouled, whatever. SGA gets to the foul line, whatever. But oftentimes, look, your reputation is your reputation. So, like with SGA, he has a reputation of getting to the line, and that backs it up. Luka is not playing, but Luka gets to the foul line a lot. That's just and he bitches a lot to referees, which
a lot.
He gets to the line.
That's one of his calling cards,
which is actually fascinating in its own right. But then it's also on a team standpoint. So like OKC, a lot of people get mad at OKC because they're like, yo, OKC's playing football out there and they don't get called for fouls. They get away with it. So what difference does it make? They have the reputation. Like, are you going to get mad at them for being aggressive? Like, no.
That's how they play.
And that's how Detroit plays. And then Boston, flip side of that. Boston's downfall in many years, even not in series losses, but like individual game losses that they've lost in series that they've won, has always been like live by the 3, die by the 3.
Yep.
So it's 2 different play styles. So like, the Knicks beat Boston that way, but maybe part of the reason why you're worried about Detroit and that because of the regular season part of it. Now, granted, the Knicks beat them last year, even though it was a great series, but it's that physicality aspect of it, right? Where it's like, and Detroit's got a home court advantage in that series potentially as well. I think you and I both agree. I know you and I both agree. I don't even have to think. I know we both do. We both agree Detroit's going to win that series against Cleveland.
Yes.
We both agree on that. Like Cleveland paper champions. And that's what we talked about this off the record a little bit.
You said paper champions.
I said it.
Most depth.
What I meant, yeah. So I'll explain what So
I don't think they have the best roster.
No. What I meant is, so with Cleveland, they're like the media paper champion team. Where it's like a guy. So we'll go down the list in no particular order, but like, okay, but without going down the list, like a guy like Evan Mobley, for example. Like, there's no disrespect to Evan Mobley. Look, I've got a lot of player things right and wrong over the years off the record, and I'll admit to that. We'll get to that with Detroit, for example, even. Like, Evan Mobley's a dude who's always been gassed up as like a guy who can win MVP by some people, and I've never believed that. And even when he was at USC in college, I never saw that, and I haven't seen anything in Cleveland that makes me feel that way. But even to this day, he gets a lot of like Evan Mobley. Like I think there's this false expectation. Like he's a great player, but the expectation of what he could be and what he should be is probably different in my mind than what he is.
He got a lot of media hype after they were.
He got a lot of media. Yeah, he got a lot of media hype.
That really boosted his stock.
You know, James Harden
got high coming from
James Harden's a great example. You know, even today, like there was a thing I even saw before we did this where, you know, the media narrative is going to be James Harden, another playoff game with James Harden where he struggles. I don't want to beat that drum, but Donovan Mitchell, obviously, like it's a big playoff series for him and the Cavs, like especially because he might be a guy who maybe if things play out a certain way, maybe he gets moved. That's its own thing. Jared Allen's a guy who's getting he's kind of like the guy who people, ironically, he's the guy I think is kind of like the punching bag of the team. Like because of the name status of these other guys, people beat on Jared Allen the most, even though it's probably his fault the least. If that makes sense.
I love Jared Allen.
Like I think
I know he makes some
plays once. Like people bash Jared Allen for wilting in the playoffs, but I don't think he wilts in the playoffs. I think he is what he is. I think we don't probably, if anything, bash the other guys enough. But yeah, they're like, look, they made the trade with Sacramento. They traded DeAndre Hunter for Keon Ellis and Dennis Schroeder, which on paper made them better right off the bat. But, you know, you look at it, Keon Ellis barely played today and throughout the playoffs. So, I mean, doesn't really matter if you don't play him. Same thing with Sacramento. They didn't play him either.
Schroeder, though.
And then, yeah, Schroeder won one of those games against Toronto.
Yeah.
I think it was game 5, right? And we came on here and we talked about it a little bit. But, yeah, they're like paper champions, right?
Oh, completely.
A little bit.
I mean, I think because when you say paper champions, in my mind makes me think, oh, like that's the best roster.
No, but it's like no. But right? No, not my definition. I'm talking like media. Like the media will talk about it.
Like other media hype.
Like not even media hype, but media depth. Like looks like a guy like Jalen Tyson. I like a lot. I really do. Naquan Tomlin doesn't even play. I like him a lot. But these guys don't play, so it doesn't matter. You know, like Craig Porter Jr. I like a lot too. He doesn't play, so it doesn't matter. We're not talking about these guys, but like the ones that play. You know, like on paper, out of the 4 teams that are left in the East, from top to bottom, they probably have the paper champion deepest team. But they're probably out of the 4, they're the worst of the 4 teams to where I would bet on Philly, the Knicks, and the Pistons to make the finals over Cleveland.
Absolutely.
And that's the caveat.
Yeah, what's their seeding? 4?
4. That's about right.
That's exactly where they are.
They're
The East seeding this year was pretty spot on.
Pretty spot on.
Played like the best team. Celtics second, Knicks third.
Yeah.
Cleveland fourth. It all made sense.
So you're feeling good about the Knicks, though?
Feeling good about the Knicks. Fuck Philly. I hope we get out in 5. By get out, I mean move on in advance. Pretty confident we're going to play Detroit. And look, we're going to need OG Anunoby to be 100%. We need everyone to be locked in on both sides of the floor and especially be efficient and rebound.
Okay. So let me ask you something before we kind of go into the rest of the NBA playoffs on the West side. Our favorite pessimistic New York sports fan. We're talking about the Knicks a little bit.
I'm pessimistic, but at the same time,
you're optimistic. But now, but there are
each side of the spectrum.
But there are other New York teams, obviously, that you like. So before we kind of transition to the West real quick and talk about that with the NBA, any thoughts on your other New York teams that you'd like to throw out there real quick, just before we kind of move forward?
You know, most of the time when New York Jets are in the media, it's generally not positive things. Usually something stupid or I'll call it circus-y. And that circus-y definition, I think, will make sense by way of example. The report that came out today or yesterday that Russell Wilson got a contract offer from the Jets to be Geno's backup and is debating whether to take that or retire and take a TV offer. That's the Jets news today. All right. It's always something that you're just scratching your head saying, why? What's going on here? Look, I love Russell Wilson. He's a Super Bowl champion. His years in Seattle, he was an elite QB for years on end. He was a franchise quarterback. That's undisputed. He's at the point in his career or he's a backup. No shame in that. But I feel like to be a football player, or to be good at anything, you got to have your head in the game.
Yeah.
And if you're also fielding retirement offers, like going through the effort of interviewing and preparing and trying to transition into a TV career, you are not focused on being a football player, which is fine, especially as a backup if you might not play, but it's also like the type of guys we need right now. I feel like we need people that are just hungry.
Okay.
And especially with Russ, he's had negative media attention from the Broncos days.
Yeah. It's like just go do the media career. Yeah.
Like it just seems like he's only going to bring like bad press. And I don't think it's really justified for him, but I don't think that matters.
Yeah.
Why are you inviting that in?
I got you.
When it's not necessary. He's not going to play either. Like, I want the backup quarterback to be unknown. I don't want issues with the media and outside noise from a guy who's not even contributing that much to winning on the field. Might be contributing in like leadership and whatnot, but not actually playing on the field.
Okay. That's a fair thought process. Now, what happens if it's one of those things where maybe he doesn't play, but he just kind of comes in one year, does like a little leadership mentor deal, and then dips? Would you be okay with that?
I'd be fine as long as there's no like media bullshit and he's not kind of just treating us as like
a media stepping stone, essentially.
Media stepping stone was what Aaron Rodgers did to us.
Okay.
Because you notice he did Pat McAfee when he was on the Jets every week.
Yeah. And now
every week, Ryan.
Yeah.
And then when he went to the Steelers, stopped immediately. With reports of him taking out dudes to dinner, like teammates to dinner. And
like that's bullshit, right?
He went with the Jets. He went to Egypt. He's like, I don't need to talk to my teammates. I'm a Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't need to do I think it was like mandatory minicamp. He missed like shit you have to go to.
Yeah.
Because he's like, well, I'm in Egypt chilling. I'm on vacation. He was blatant with these. I got to do whatever I want. You guys paid me bullshit, high money. Gave him like an absurd extension. All right? Gave him an absurd extension, traded first-round picks for him. He came in. He didn't do shit. I don't care about the Achilles. He came back, didn't do shit. He had a bad attitude.
And then he goes to Pittsburgh.
And he goes to Pittsburgh. I will say statistically, he wasn't that good in Pittsburgh. They're just a good organization with good defense and Hall of Fame coaching. Shout out Mike T. I hope he's enjoying
his retirement.
Oh, I think he's going to be on TV though.
He's going to be a happy guy. No stress anymore.
He's going to be like
bullshit.
An analyst, right?
Oh yeah.
He's going to have a great old time. They're going to have him on half.
You're going to see him smiling. Oh yeah, you're going to see him smiling like he's never smiled before because he doesn't have to deal with all the bullshit of like 9-8 Mike T Baja. It's like, oh, miss me now, motherfucker. Like,
oh yeah,
yeah. Like you made fun of me. You took me for granted. Like I was dragging that mediocre team to be a 9-8 team. They're going to be ass without me.
I couldn't believe the media hate they would give him on dragging it.
Oh, by the way, they're going to be ass without him.
They're going to be ass. No disrespect to Mike McCarthy, but come on. Mike T was holding that team together, dude. He just refused to let the floor break under that. He kept a high floor for that team.
Bingo.
And look.
Bingo.
It's mediocre.
People make fun of that. But he was dragging that shit from being bottom 5 to 9-8.
I will also say, as a head coach, that's elite head coaching. Their issues have been their general manager. Why do you not even really, other than Kenny Pickett, you haven't drafted a single quarterback in the first round? Ben Roethlisberger has been retired for years, and even his last, 2 seasons,
he was ass.
His arm was fucked.
Oh, yeah.
So you were on notice all those years ago, you need a quarterback. What the fuck was the GM doing? The only guy you drafted was Kenny Pickett in the first round across all those years. You had first-round picks each year. Just because you weren't in the top 10 doesn't mean there's no quarterback available.
Yeah.
Jalen Hurts was a second-round pick. You got a guy in the second round.
Yeah.
But let me go back to Aaron Rodgers. Fuck Aaron Rodgers. All right?
Yeah.
So I don't want Russ to close the loop here. I don't want Russ to kind of use this as a media stepping stone, like he's just doing more media appearances and stuff, which brings noise to the team that I don't think we need as a rebuilding team that's trying to establish a culture with a new regime.
Okay.
Last year was a fucking rinse, okay? I was concerned for Aaron Glenn's job security at one point. So I want us to play competently, and I think part of that's going to be eliminating outside noise. But that's all I got for the Jets.
Okay.
Now, the Yankees, we're in baseball season.
Yeah.
We're in a good swing of things.
Yeah.
New York Yankees, number 1 team in the East.
Yeah.
Number 2 team.
I think they're
Tampa Bay fucking Rays in our division.
And you know what? Those 2 teams, I think I saw today, those are the only 2 teams in the entire American League. So only 2 out of 15 teams are above 500 right now. It's the Yankees and the Rays.
Yeah, the East is not that good.
No, I'm talking the whole fucking American League, like Central, West, the whole shebang
The
shaboom.
whole, the NL is way better.
The whole shebang shaboom is the Yankees, it's the Rays, and then there's the Moneyball movie where it's like there's us 50 feet of crap.
Oh yeah.
And then there's the Yankees, it's the Rays, and there's 50 feet of crap, and it's the rest of the American League right now. But anyways, so how are you feeling about your Yankees so far?
We had that one stretch where we lost a few games in a row and pissed me off. Again, I get pissed easily about these teams.
I get it.
Actually, I kind of just get pissed easily, but that's a different topic. So I was concerned about that, but we leveled out. Aaron Judge has been playing better. He's getting his average up. I think he's top 5 in homers, if I'm not mistaken. Top 10 in RBIs. I think 270 batting average, which was like 250 a week ago. So he's been bringing it up. Pitching, I think we have the second best starting ERA, or just overall ERA in the majors. Our pitching has been excellent. Our starters have been great. Cam Schittler is playing. He's pitching elite.
Oh yeah,
I love to see it.
Oh yeah, he's been a top 2-3 pitcher in baseball.
Came from our farm. We brought him up. Had the killer playoff game.
Oh yeah,
killer game.
Against Boston, right?
Against Boston. He's a Massachusetts boy.
Yeah,
shouting off the mound. Big ass dude, absolutely electric. So just watching him play and watching him play well definitely gives me more hope for the future. Cody Bellinger's living up to his contract so far. I thought we gave him I thought it was a really good deal for him. But I was like, if we get this level of production, which is what we're getting right now, it'll be all right. And we're also going to have Carlos Rodon come back and Garrett Cole.
Oh yeah. On top of what you said is already
Max Fried, Cam Schittler, Weathers is playing well. Will Warren, he had a bad start the other day, but he's all again. We have
that's a nasty rotation.
Bednar, our closer. We have Blackburn. We got decent relievers because we kept. I think we got 2 or 3 at the deadline last year.
Yeah, Doval, Bednar. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like where the Yankees are right now. I really think we have a shot this year, especially if our pitching. If we are a top 5 pitching team, considering the bats we have, I think like Trent Grisham, for example, playing like ass, he'll improve. Giancarlo Stanton will get healthy. We'll kind of keep him on ice for the playoffs, especially if we're like if it's the end of the year and we're doing pretty well in our division. So I'm very optimistic, back in my delusional New York era, very bipolar with my teams.
Yeah.
I'm in my delusional era. I think I'm hoping for, 100 wins, AL East title, and an actual fucking title, a World Series.
Okay.
That's the goal. It's the Yankees.
It's the Yankees.
That's the goal. We haven't won. We didn't win in the 2010s. We haven't won in the 2020s so far. We can't squander Aaron Judge. He's too good. He's the captain after Derek Jeter. He needs a ring.
I agree. All right. So now I want to kind of piggyback it to the NBA real quick, if you don't mind. We'll go to the West real quick. We've got this Lakers and Thunder game going on right now. 69-68 at the moment. The Lakers are up. We've got Taylor Rooks doing a DraftKings commercial right now.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, that's how you get people to gamble, right?
Got us locked in on the screen.
So DraftKings pick 6, play 5, get 30 instantly with the Google Luka commercial now. Luka's not playing, obviously.
He's not playing. They say it doesn't seem like he'll be back this series.
No, it doesn't seem like it. So look, regardless of what happens in this game, shout out to the Lakers being up 69-68 at this point in the third quarter. Good for them. They're down 1-0 in the series. I think you and I both agree that OKC's going to win the series.
Absolutely.
Even with Luka, it'd be tough, but without Luka, they probably don't have a shot.
I know Luka's not coming back. That's not factoring into my analysis. No, Luka averaged 33.5 points per game with 8 assists on 45% shooting. Keep in mind, he's like a 38, I think, percent shooter from 3, almost 40%.
Even if his percentage isn't high, the volume, yeah.
Look, if you're shooting 45% at least on 33 points a game, that's great.
Oh, yeah.
8 assists.
Oh, yeah.
He gets, 6 or 7 boards?
You're missing that, yeah.
He's an MVP candidate.
Yeah, he's one of the 5.
So missing him fucking blows. Now, you got LeBron who's turning it up. Shout out LeBron, 41 years old. A lot of these young dudes ain't doing what he's doing. In the playoffs, stepping up. So got to give the flowers where they're due. But they lose in this series. I'll
Yeah.
be very intrigued on the Lakers next season. We all know LeBron is not going to resign. He's just,
So what do you think he's going to go somewhere else? Or what do you say?
I swear it's going to be his last year. He's going to announce a farewell tour and he'll take a cheap deal to Cleveland.
You think so?
I think so. Part of me thinks he'll still want like a high deal just so he could show that his value's high. Because that does matter.
I mean, I think he'll come back.
I don't think it's not for the money purpose. It's just to more show like, I still have power.
Okay. It's a little early to see where. I mean, honestly, I think enough people talk about LeBron. I don't really want to add any more oxygen to LeBron. I swear to God, if I see one more LeBron, MJ, who's the GOAT conversation, I'm like,
we talked about that article. That was hilarious. It came out when they were going to win the series.
Against the Rockets.
That killed both of us.
Man. When ESPN put out that piece before Game 5 at a Rockets-Lakers series. Yeah, and they lost. Not granted, they won the series.
And that was in Los Angeles.
Yeah. No, they put that out strategically because they figured that they were going to win. And then, we put out the LeBron interview on the same day that they beat the Rockets. Not granted, again, they won the series. But it's just funny that particular day they lost. But yeah, I think enough people talk about LeBron, man. I don't think any more oxygen needs to be wasted.
We're gonna move on then. San Antonio versus Minnesota Timberwolves.
That's right. Best series of the second round without question, right?
Game 2 was not competitive at all.
No.
Concerns me a bit because I could see the way they won the game looked like they could replicate it.
I think it's a 7-game series.
Still, are you saying Ant-Man gets healthier? Because he didn't look fully good to go in Game 2.
I still take San Antonio. If Minnesota wins, I'm happy for him. But look, you put a gun to my head. If you put a gun to my head, the Knicks are going to move on. The Pistons are going to move on. By the way, I want to shout out the Pistons real quickly before we go back to that Minnesota OKC thing. We talked about Cleveland being paper champions. Kind of want to shout out Cleveland. I think a lot of people kind of buried them for dead. Maybe rightfully so after being down 3-1 against Orlando. I know there are a lot of factors that contributed in many ways for them coming back.
Magic,
Franz Wagner,
how to play basketball.
Yeah, Franz Wagner was out, and then the Magic.
Game 6 was absurd.
Oh yeah,
I was pissed. I wanted the Magic to win because that's a better matchup for the Knicks.
Yeah,
they blew it.
That fourth quarter for the Magic in Game 6 was that was up there.
Third quarter too. The second half was brutal. They scored like 18 points.
What did you say? It was like one of those things where one of the lowest scoring halves in like the history of basketball in its entirety.
Like, how did that happen? Like, that needs an explanation.
Regardless,
I'm surprised you still think T-Wolves.
I think
Spurs is a 7-game series.
6 or 7.
6 or 7.
I think 6 or 7.
I'd go 6. I think T-Wolves are going to win another game.
Yeah, look, I'll say 6. I will say this: regardless of whether it goes 6 or 7, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if it goes 7. I think Minnesota took Game 1, and I think they took what they need. They weren't going to win 2 in San Antonio. They got Game 1. San Antonio came back and beat the dog crap out of them. Shit happens. I think if I had to guess, I think they'll split in Minnesota. San Antonio will get Game 5, and then it's just a matter of whether Minnesota can win Game 6 or not. But I still think that San Antonio will take the series. I think San Antonio and OKC has kind of felt like an inevitability for a while. I think that's a 7-game series, San Antonio
Absolutely.
OKC.
And that is going to be
– and that's a heavyweight.
That's must-see TV right
now. In my opinion, probably the 2 best teams in the league, in my opinion, without really much of a debate. Now, granted, I think the NBA is very deep, and I think with that said, I think 2 things can be true, right? I think OKC, San Antonio are the 2 best teams. I think OKC and San Antonio, not only are they the 2 best teams, I think I would be surprised if anybody else wins it besides the 2 of them, maybe, in a betting sense. Shout out Kalshi, shout out DraftKings and FanDuel and Polymarket and all that crap. But if I had to guess, it would be those 2. But I don't want to get it misconstrued because I don't want to make it seem like every other basketball analysis and coverage you get out there, because I do think that Minnesota's just as good of a team. I think Detroit can hang. Even your Knicks maybe can hang.
I was going to say, you got to include them.
People forget OKC last year went to Game 7 against Indiana And if Halliburton doesn't blow out his Achilles, you never know how that thing's going to go.
And he was having a good game up until that.
That's what I'm saying. You never know. We don't live in that universe, but you never know. Maybe OKC doesn't even win that game. You never know. So all I'm going to say is it's not a slam dunk that OKC wins. It's certainly not a slam dunk that San Antonio wins either. Like, San Antonio's got to get to OKC first. I think we can both agree that OKC is going to get past the Lakers. Although, again, shout out, JJ Redick and the coaching staff for kind of making it, they've been able to muck it up in a way that probably the Lakers probably shouldn't be able to, but they've been able to. But yeah, I think we're pretty confident here. It'll be the Knicks and the Pistons in the East. It'll be the Spurs and the Thunder in the West, and then we'll touch on it from there. But before we tie a bow in the NBA real quick and we move on, Sunday's a big day outside of Mother's Day, obviously. Shout out to all the beautiful mothers out there.
Shout out to all the lovely mothers.
Shout out to the mothers. We love them.
Always.
But in addition to Mother's Day, Sunday's a big day because it is the NBA draft lottery. We came on here a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the great tanking controversy of 2026. And I kind of wanted to open it up to you real quick and get your thoughts on not only the NBA draft lottery from whatever we didn't touch on there, but maybe any additional things as far as some of the proposals that have been thrown out there for next season and so on and so forth.
I think my position will be the same. It's the same ethos, same theme. I don't understand the draft lottery. They rig it, allegedly.
Not every year. Some years.
But it's very clear, look.
Not every year.
There's too many coincidences that happen.
For sure.
So the fact that they're treating it like if we change the lottery, it'll completely change the concept of how teams approach team building through getting a higher draft pick, through tanking. Without acknowledging, like we talked about the process with Philly and that whole concept and how it started and so on. OKC did it. There's a lot of teams that do it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it works. Getting a top 5 pick can be sensational for your franchise. I mean, you look at the Indiana Pacers. They lost Tyrese Halliburton, so they essentially took a gap year. I mean, they didn't play Zubac at all. He played every game with the Clippers, and then they traded for him to, he needs a procedure. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? They're like James Harden. He always gets hurt right before he gets traded. Yeah. Then he's back the next game with his new team. It's like, gotcha. He's healthy now. So with that, the fact that they're treating this tanking thing so seriously is I just don't get the whole treatment of tanking, how it's such an issue. I know this year there was more than normal, but that's because there's more talent than normal in the draft. An unprecedented amount of talent.
Yeah.
The first round is 20 picks deep.
Yeah.
That's never the case.
Yeah.
That's never the case.
So why wouldn't you tank?
Yeah, so more teams are saying,
even if we
get a great player,
even if we don't get the number 1 pick, it's like Utah we talked about. Okay, Utah's probably saying, okay, we're not going to get the number 1 pick, but we're going to keep our first round pick. So even if we get the 7th pick, it's better than having no pick.
And after you mentioned the picks, protected, swaps, that is part of the problem.
Yeah.
So if you actually cared about, here's what my issue is. If you actually cared about tanking instead of changing lottery odds arbitrarily, you would get rid of
pick protections
and pick swaps.
So that's the
problem. They don't want a real solution.
They want to go too far in the other direction.
No, they just want to mask what they actually want to do.
That's true. Because we talked about it.
And I get it. And it's a sexy narrative and people have bought it. But give me a break.
Yeah. Look, I'm with you. We could talk about it. We could go down the list. Okay. Look, we talked about LeBron. We don't want to give too much oxygen to LeBron. But LeBron grows up in Akron. He goes to the Cavs. Think about what you want to think about. All right. But then LeBron goes to Miami. We mentioned Cleveland gets 3 number 1 picks. Anthony Davis. We can go down the list. You mentioned it's just a way to mask what they want to do without having to it's a conspiracy. It's just these are the odds.
And they're changing the odds, putting more teams in it.
Yeah, expanding it to where now I think there've been a couple of different proposals that have been thrown out there. I think there seem to be 2 leaders in the clubhouse, but basically what it appears to be is, regardless of which one comes out of it, the main summary of it, and it's been a couple twofold. Like, the first part of it has been like, okay, let's either expand the number of teams that can join the lottery. So, for example, the teams that lose in the first round join the lottery. So a team like the Denver Nuggets could join the draft lottery, hypothetically, maybe in years future. Or like the Boston Celtics could be in a draft lottery with this current iteration in future years. That's been one possibility that's been thrown around. There have been other possibilities where, okay, maybe we expand the draft lottery, not that extreme, but a little bit, but then we'll basically continue to decrease the odds, which have already been decreased, by the way, to get the number one pick, but decrease it even further for the bottom three teams. There's been the talk about, which I find it funny, like a relegation from the lottery, even though there's no like actual relegation, but it's been like, basically you can't pick in the top 3 or 5 in consecutive years.
Absurd.
So
what if you're just bad? What if you had injuries and you got issues?
The NBA doesn't care.
That's the thing.
NBA don't
all
care.
These proposals, they say it's anti-tanking, all this. What the real result is, the worst team has a worse chance of getting better. And a lot of the times, the worst teams are small market teams. So it's like a small market team suppression tactic on top of allowing for other teams to get better odds and more chances for
rigging. Look, I will say,
it's all about pick protection. Yeah. That's it.
If they fixed that and they didn't get rid of the odds.
How many times have you heard of like the Mavs? They lost those games.
No one had a problem with that.
The Knicks couldn't get the pick. Everyone.
Derek Lively, right? Yeah. Mark Cuban was on record. He was like, "Oh yeah, we tanked." Even when they got Luka, when the Mavs got Luka, they tanked.
So what did they say? He literally said, "We tanked."
San Antonio.
Because of our pick protection trade.
Yeah.
Which means if there was no pick protection,
they wouldn't have tanked.
They wouldn't have had the incentive.
San Antonio tanked for Wemby, no pick protection, obviously, but they tanked. They got Wemby, they got Steph Castle, they got Dylan Harper.
Another interesting coincidence. They decided to just give them another star.
Dylan Harper.
But
and Steph Castle. And Wemby.
The fact they got Wemby, come on.
Bullshit.
Oh, come on.
I mean, at least
too much success.
But at least in
Duncan with Parker and Ginobili, Kawhi, and now they get him. Come on, man.
But that's why
the rich get richer.
But that's why it was quote unquote. I mean, people will say, why would they rig it for the Spurs? The Spurs are about as small market as it gets. Like you said, the Spurs are a little different in a sense that it was like, okay, how do we transition? Because I think a lot of people forget. Like, if you want to use the Spurs as an example. And this would be a way to actually shout out my guy DeMar DeRozan a little bit too.
Shout out DeMar DeRozan.
Shout out my guy Debo. We'll talk about the Kings too, like and the Bulls.
Excellent mid-range game.
Oh yeah. Look, so like with San Antonio, I think a lot of people forget. Like, okay, here's what happened with San Antonio. Just so we could go down the vault. Okay, San Antonio, way back when, before we were born, like right before we were born, had David Robinson, the Admiral.
The Admiral.
Okay. They had a really bad year one year. They ended up with the first pick. They got Tim Duncan. They won the championship with Tim Duncan and the Admiral. They got Manu Ginobili at the end of the first round. They got Tony Parker. They had Popovich. And they built basically the New England Patriots, San Antonio Spurs, like very synonymous when we were growing up, right? By the way, side note, but OKC's doing what we expected, pulling away a little bit into the third quarter. But like, okay, San Antonio, right? With San Antonio, model organization of like front office down, like that's how you run a team. They're, like even the years they lost to Miami and LeBron, like the one year that Chris Bosh had to hit the three in the champion, like they should have won that finals. And then the year later, they ended up winning the finals. And then going way back in the vault, what Greg Popovich at the time, and I think to this day, if he were to talk about it still, I don't think anything's changed. Greg Popovich said the hardest trade he ever had to make was trading George Hill to Indiana for Kawhi Leonard as a draft pick.
That was a trade. That was a draft night trade.
It was a draft night trade. And Kawhi Leonard, I think, was, the 16th pick, if I'm not mistaken. Out of SDSU. I could be wrong on the exact number, but basically,
you're the mid-round,
mid-first round pick. The Spurs traded George Hill, and Popovich said at the time, and even years after, it was like, it was the hardest trade we ever had to make. We love George Hill. They got Kawhi. They developed Kawhi. So even people forget, like before Kawhi became Kawhi, Kawhi was still on those Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker teams. Like Kawhi was a contributing member of those teams. And then as those guys got older, Kawhi Leonard's role started to expand. He started to develop. It got better. Those guys even left, and then it was Kawhi that was there. And Kawhi was really good on San Antonio. People probably forget that, maybe.
I don't think people forget.
Maybe they don't.
Excellent. That's why they got a good haul when they traded him to the Raptors.
And
despite the fact that he requested.
Yeah, and like I'm glad you made that caveat, because I want to shout out my guy DeMar DeRozan, because it's like that's one of the rare examples where it's a guy who was coming off of an injury and demanded a trade and still commanded a return like that, which you typically don't get. And when you get one or the other, you get both, and they get, so, the trade back then, Jakob Poeltl, DeRozan, X, Y, and Z, they go from Toronto to San Antonio. And I think part of what fucks up this whole narrative is that Toronto won the finals that one year that Kawhi was there, and it kind of just shatters the whole narrative a little bit. And we live in a world about narratives a little bit, right?
Absolutely.
That's just the way the world works. So, and we mentioned Embiid in Philly. It took that Kawhi shot to hit the rim 15 times and dropped in the second round for them to even make it to the conference finals. They beat Milwaukee. They made it to the NBA finals. And then they beat Golden State. KD and Clay both got hurt. Now,
that was a bad injury series for them, because they were out indefinitely, like Achilles tear for Durant, free agency. And then Clay.
Look, Toronto won regardless. It doesn't matter. Like Toronto won regardless. But like my point is, we forget that on the flip side with San Antonio. So San Antonio trading Kawhi, even though they got DeMar, was an early signal that they were going to transition into a new era away from Duncan and those guys.
Yes.
And that's part of the narrative part of it. Like, because of the trade and what happened with Kawhi and Toronto and then San Antonio tanking, like, I think the narrative is that it like makes DeMar look worse maybe in some ways. And then, the Bulls teams in Sacramento, we'll get to that. But, like with that San Antonio team, the first year that they were there, it was DeMar, LaMarcus Aldridge, Derek White. Yeah. That was the team. Who did they play in the first round that year? Denver. It was the first year that Jokic and Murray made the playoffs together.
Okay.
And Jokic was breaking records in that first series. People forget about that. Like, Jokic had like the greatest first ever playoff series for an NBA player, arguably, or probably one of like the 3 or 5 best playoff series for your playoff.
What year was this?
2018.
2018.
We were third year Fullerton.
The year we were living together.
Yeah, we were living together. Yeah. So we were living together, and, that was the first year that Denver made the playoffs. That was the year that Denver lost to Portland in the second round, and then Portland lost to Golden State.
I remember that series.
Yeah.
I remember the Portland series. For some reason, I don't remember the Nuggets series. We definitely watched some games.
We did.
I know the Portland
But it was a long time ago.
That was a long time ago.
And I even had to go back in the vault a little bit, because it's like San Antonio. Look, San Antonio lost that series in 7 games.
Wow, that was a 7-game series.
It was a 7-game series. So it's not like they immediately were ass. Like they competed. Then LaMarcus Aldridge after that year, from that year after was when he kind of fell off a cliff, and that's when the rebuild started. So it had nothing to do with DeMar. That's the point I wanted to make. Like, they didn't suck because of DeMar.
No, he's a great consistent player.
Like the team, they were already kind of phasing into that rebuilding, getting rid of Kawhi, basically, is my point.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they got rid of DeMar. DeMar goes to Chicago, and that's when the rebuild started.
Absolutely.
2 years later.
That was the official signal.
And then they got Wemby, and they were asked that year they got Wemby. They were like the second or third worst team in the league, but they didn't have the worst record that year. But they were at least at the bottom. It wasn't like Chicago, they got Derrick Rose, and, Cleveland getting the number 1 pick or whatever. But at least they were asked. But it's all that of a caveat, which is basically to say that San Antonio is the caveat of these small market teams, because they had that success that it almost felt like a slam dunk. Like, if we would have done this, I wish we would have done this, because I think we started these recordings maybe a couple of months after that draft lottery and that NBA draft. But I think it was like at the time I would have said like the Spurs are getting the number 1 pick. It just felt like divine because Tony Parker, French guy, he had his stake with the Wembanyama team, and then there was that connect. It just felt like it was obvious that Wemby was going to the Spurs. Like it just
seemed obvious.
Like did it really feel like Wemby was going to go to the Portland Trailblazers?
Absolutely not.
No,
never.
So that's the caveat that I wanted to make about the great tanking controversy of 2026. The caveat I wanted to make is that I don't think the draft lottery is rigged every year, and you can even debate that it is rigged at all. But the caveat I want to make is I don't think it's rigged every year. There are some years where shit just happens, like the Atlanta Hawks that won the draft lottery and they shot up and they got Zachary Risache. That wasn't rigged, in my opinion. I agree. Shit just happens.
I agree. That was the time shit just happens. But there's other times that makes
but then also the one that made me scratch my head that same year was Houston jumping up to number 3 overall. That was the one where you're like, okay. Yeah. So that's the caveat within that. It's not always about the number 1 pick. But then, like you said, with these bad teams like with Utah, with Memphis, look, are they going to get the number 1 pick? Probably not. But your objective with the Wizards, who would have given that pick to the Knicks if they hadn't tanked. Your objective is, okay, we might not get the number 1 pick. But the 8th pick in a draft where the 8th pick is probably like the 2nd or the 3rd pick any other year, we'll take that 8th pick over no pick.
Absolutely.
And so, like you said, it's just the NBA over-correcting something. Like if they really wanted to fix the tanking problem, you would get rid of pick swaps, pick protections, and all of that. And that would be a common sense way to get rid of it.
I'd get rid of it significantly.
And then another...
Because like you said, there's a lot of teams that do it to avoid giving up their pick.
Yeah.
If you're mediocre and you might lose your first-round pick, you should tank.
Yeah.
To keep your pick.
Of course.
Now, if you can't do a protected trade pick, then that incentive and motive never generates in the first place. So now tanking's for a different reason, where it's like the NFL. Like less teams do it because less teams are that bad where they need franchise-altering help.
You're right.
And last year,
that's why the
NHL the Jets and the Raiders. And that's got 1 and 2.
And that's why the NFL doesn't have the tanking problem. Now, granted, smaller sample size is a different sport. I get that.
Yeah,
but even
differences.
I've heard other people mention other sports that have draft lotteries. Like, okay, I know you don't watch hockey. Hockey's not my area of expertise, but okay, the Toronto Maple Leafs got the first pick the other day. Is that rigged? Probably not. Just a coincidence. The fact that
a good team.
It's the first year that they didn't make the draft. It's the first year they didn't make the playoffs since the last time they got the number 1 overall pick a decade ago.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So it's like similar coincidence, but the difference
have they won a championship in the last 10 years?
The Maple Leafs haven't won it in like 50, 60 years.
Oh, shit. But they're consistently good.
But, yeah, I mean, they're like the
Bills?
No, I mean, yeah, they're like the Bills, but I mean, the Maple Leafs. But the Maple Leafs, I mean, from what I understand, like the Maple Leafs are like, they're like one of the big franchises in the NHL. So they're like the Lakers, the Celtics, the Knicks. Like
they're not like the Bills, yeah.
Like that's what I'm saying.
The Bills, like they went to 4 Super Bowls in the '90s, lost all of them.
But
with Allen, they've never even won a Super Bowl.
The different level.
Good.
But my point is my point is like, okay, with different sports. So like with the NHL, they have a draft lottery. The Maple Leafs win the draft lottery. My first initial thought, and I'm not super big into the NHL, my first initial thought was like, okay, awfully convenient. First year that they've gotten the number 1 pick since they got the number 1 overall pick about a decade ago. They hired a GM that wasn't very popular in the hiring sense, kind of 180 version of Nico, where Nico made the trade, but they hired this guy before they got the pick. So that's the one caveat. And then, so it just felt kind of convenient. Like, okay, they would have lost their first round pick had they been outside the top 5, and they went from within top 5 odds to the first overall pick. Like, it felt kind of convenient. But my trusted hockey sources would tell me, like, no, that's just not rigged. That's just a coincidence. And I'll take their word for it. But like with the NBA, look, maybe it's not rigged, but on the scale of the NBA and the NHL, which one's a little bit more likely to be culprity? Like, we'll see on Sunday. But I'm pretty confident in saying I don't think Utah's going to get the number 1 pick. Sacramento sure as fuck's not getting the number 1 pick. I'd be more likely to say, like, okay, maybe the Bulls to get the first pick. maybe the Hawks even, like we mentioned, or okay, Golden State, Milwaukee, Indiana, someone like that. No, maybe not Indiana, actually. I take that back.
Milwaukee would be funny because that would
I think
like,
Milwaukee's.
hey, we'll give you the number 1 pick. Get
You
rid of
get rid of
Giannis,
Giannis.
give him to a big market team.
And I feel like, so that's why I want to set the stage with this now so we can kind of talk about it. And then when the draft lottery happens on Sunday, we can come back and see what happens.
Yeah, we're doing after,
We're doing after recap, after effect. So, I just kind of wanted to, talk about that big tanking controversy of 2026 a little bit, just because it's like, hey, you know what? There's a lot of, we'll continue to talk about it. It's not a finished picture. And who knows? Look, maybe the Kings get the first pick. And I come here and I eat my words and I'd be very happy.
I'd be surprised.
I'd be happy.
But I wonder if they'd somehow fuck it up. Because their owners, I haven't heard good stories about him. And
Vivek, baby.
Yeah, like vetoing like GM draft choices. Like,
that disastrous ownership group. Like, doesn't get on.
I'm very concerned. I feel like the NBA doesn't trust them to get a number 1 pick. They're like, you're going to squander this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you're going to trade a guy you can get at 4.
But honestly, to be honest with you, if the NBA was really as serious as they're talking, like, they would actually reward them with the number 1 pick because they had the heading in after.
They tried.
Because after the All-Star break, heading outside of the trade deadline and All-Star break, they had the worst team in the league record-wise. And now they have the 5th worst. They have the 5th best odds for the number 1 pick. And they could drop down as far as 9 now. So if the NBA was really as serious about this, like, this is for Adam Silver and the gang to hear, and like all the owners, like, if you really are about what you're about, and shout out again to DeMar DeRozan, like, and the Kings, look, if you're really about that, they could have tanked. They could have stayed at that worst record. Utah shut down all their players. They traded for Jaren Jackson Jr. He played like a game and a half. They shut his ass down. Even last year, the Kings traded De'Aaron Fox to San Antonio. They shut down De'Aaron Fox almost immediately after they traded for him with that pinky injury.
Yep.
And they got Dylan Harper out of it. So if the NBA genuinely wants to put his money where its mouth is, they would give the Sacramento Kings the number 1 overall pick. They would say, hey, these guys had the worst record. They don't anymore. They won a bunch of games they probably shouldn't have won. The fans of the Kings are mad that they won those games.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I'm saying.
Well, like, they weren't trying to tank. They're just bad.
That's what I'm saying. So, like, if Adam Silver in the NBA, if the marketing overlords, the corporate smorgasbord of jerkfest guys that they really believe, like, you really intently mean that shit, they would give the Kings the 1st overall pick. And I want to make that clarification. And I want to make that known now before the draft lottery.
Hey, let's hope the Kings get it. They need
because
it.
no team deserves that pick more than the Kings. No fan base deserves it more because they've had one relevant year in like 15, 20 years.
Yeah,
and that was the Beam Team year where they lost to the Warriors in 7 games and Steph Curry put them night-night.
Oof, yes.
Was
that the year Mike Brown won Coach of the Year?
Yes.
Yeah, that checks out. 2023?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the only year they've been good since like the Mike Bibby, bloody Divock, NBA rigged it for the Lakers over the Kings, apparently, whatever, series. So, look, if the NBA means what it's about, you want to put your money where your mouth is about tanking, give the Kings the 1st overall pick.
It's just funny. I find it funny how I feel like for months, like at least 2 months, there's been an article on ESPN, at least one a week about this. And it's like, why is this such a discussed topic? No other sport
propaganda. And why do you think ESPN? But why do you think
because it's not an issue?
So here's the thing. So why do you think that the context of this is? I'm glad you bring that up. So remember strategic fouling that we talked about off the record about a month ago.
Fouling.
So there was a game between, ironically, the Warriors and the Kings about maybe a couple of weeks before the season ended. And there was about 3 minutes left in the game. It was a close game, 1-possession game, and the Kings intentionally fouled Seth, not Steph, Seth Curry.
The older brother.
Yeah. No, younger brother.
He's younger?
He's younger.
Okay.
So they intentionally fouled Seth Curry with like 3 minutes left in the game. So after the game, Draymond Green goes in and like rips apart the Kings. He's like, that's some blatant tanking shit. Like NBA got to do some shit. If I say something, you're gonna fine me. Draymond's got his podcast and his YouTube channel and everything. That's a separate conversation.
He's getting ready for the media career.
Exactly. Oh, he's
smart, which is smart. As your career
he already has a media career. He's with TNT, which is ESPN now.
Oh yeah, I saw him. He was on Inside the NBA. You replaced Shaq.
He's already got his media.
Member, you replace someone when they're gone.
He's already got his media career. And then they asked Doug Christie after the game, like, what happened there? And so Doug Christie goes in, he explains, like, look, I wanted to use a timeout before we couldn't use it anymore. And we just kind of like, we mixed it up, basically. We fucked it up. It was an honest mistake. Like, we wanted to call a timeout. We wanted to foul them so we could get a little bit of a timeout. And we didn't realize that they were in the bonus, basically. We wanted to foul them and call a timeout. And we didn't realize that they were in the bonus and they were going to get 2 free throws. That was basically his logic.
That was the explanation.
And I'm going to be honest with you. I actually believe that shit because I really do believe, like, they got, like, say what you want about Doug Christie. I honestly don't mind the guy. I think they probably got the worst assistant coaching staff in the NBA. And that's a big part of it.
Actually, I don't watch Kings games ever.
Just in the sense of, like, look, Doug Christie was always going to be a figurehead. He's the lowest paid head coach in the league. He was promoted internally because they fired Mike Brown. Like, that's separate.
And they traded De'Aaron Fox, their best player, and all their other guys. They're not giving him much to work with.
No.
On top of
So it's like, regardless of what look, Doug Christie gets fired by the Kings at some point. He's probably not on any short list to get another job.
Okay.
But look.
Tibbs doesn't have a job right now. I feel bad.
He might
get one. Though.
He might get one.
I love Tibbs though.
So my point is this, like, so there was, after Draymond said that there was an article that came out where it's basically like trying to talk about, like, the Kings trying to tank, basically, or like basically setting it up for, it's like, okay, look, I get it. The Kings did shut down some guys. Like Sabonis was hurt. He came back. They shut him down. LaVine, that's a whole 3-hour conversation with Zach LaVine. Like, they traded for DeAndre Hunter from Cleveland. We mentioned that earlier. He played like 1.5 games. He got his eye poked out and didn't play. He got eye surgery, didn't play the rest of the year. Like, that's
a terrible injury. Oh my.
Yeah, like, that's a legitimate injury.
Yeah, that's like you might not see again. That's a long recovery process.
That's a legitimate injury.
Oh my God.
So look.
Hope he's good. Jeez.
So my point is this. Like,
poked out?
So, like, my point is this. Sacramento had every incentive to tank. And with the media narrative setting it up like, okay, they're tanking. But in reality, if you actually watch the Kings, which I guarantee you, nobody that gets paid by ESPN was watching the Kings like that when they put that article out.
Not.
If you actually want, dude, they were not trying to tank. I promise you.
I heard that. I have a friend of mine who's
they were not. No,
he told me that
they're not.
He said they tried.
DeMar and Russ. You think those guys want to tank? No,
they're not built like that.
They don't. They shut down.
They're built to win.
They shut down Russ first. Now, granted, Russ was a basketball terrorist in his own way, but also,
look,
I want to give credit to Russell Westbrook too. By the way, I want to give him a big shout out. Like, if Russ ever listens to this, I give Russell Westbrook and DeMar DeRozan a lot of credit. Not to jerk these guys up, but I give them a lot of credit for separate reasons because they both, in separate ways, could have pouted about being ass. Like, DeMar could have been like, yo, I'm at the end of my career. Send me to a playoff team. No, they didn't do that. They're like, hey, you know what? Now, I'm sure there were reasons they like to get paid. I'm sure the money's good. They don't want to move, the fam or whatever. But point being, like, Russell Westbrook was instrumental in the development of, like, a guy like Maxime Reynaud. Maxime Reynaud will tell you that firsthand. Like, so whatever success that Sacramento has in the future, in many ways, I think is built between those two guys.
That makes sense. A lot of leadership, mentorship.
Yes, like you mentioned Russell Wilson and the Jets.
Yeah,
like, this is the opposite version of that, where it's like neither one of these guys made any problems. There was no bitching in the media. Russell Westbrook actually called out the media for coming after the Kings.
I saw that.
And I give a lot of respect for Russ. That was a great press conference, one of my favorite of the season. So I give a lot of credit to Russ and to DeMar. They both suited up. They went out there. They showed those guys, the young guys on that team, like, hey, this is how you be a professional. This is how you take care of your body. You show up. So whatever success they have in the future is not because of ownership. It's not because of whatever. It's because of those guys that, like, took the time to pour in those hours into those guys. So I give credit where it's due. But they definitely weren't trying to tank. Like DeMar himself, Westbrook, those two guys helped them and helped their young players win games that most teams like the Wizards, the Jazz, the Grizzlies, like those teams were tanking. Sacramento wasn't tanking. Sacramento, even before, after the trade deadline, when they should have been tanking, they beat Brooklyn, they beat Utah. Like they beat the teams that were also tanking. Like that's what I'm saying. If the NBA is serious about this tanking shit, that's who you give the number one pick to. So we'll see how it plays out.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Only a few days.
We'll see. So we've talked a little bit about the NBA. We've done that. We touched a little bit on that. We touched on it a little bit briefly earlier. Malik talked about it about a week or two ago. There's this Diana Rossini, Mike Vrabel situation that's going on. There's been a lot that's been said about it. You have a unique perspective to it, probably similar and different from others out there. And I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on that situation and how it pertains to how you view it.
I'm not sure how unique it is, but
maybe it's not unique, but in the sense that there's an angle to it that
I've read articles on it.
It's not unique because it's not the first time that people have cheated. That's not the point we're trying to talk about. We're talking about it from an NFL standpoint with what we're talking about right now, which you're going to bring up, right?
Yeah.
So I want to give that floor to you to kind of explain your thought process on that, not from forget the cheating and the sex and whatever. We don't care about that.
Yeah, we know entertainers, famous people. They cheat a lot.
Yeah,
that's kind of what happens.
Yeah, like you said.
That's not surprising.
No.
Like, a coach fucked a reporter. They had a 6-year relationship.
They fucked. Who cares?
Like, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Are you?
No.
No one is.
No. But there's a part that you want to talk about that isn't what is probably talked about a little bit, and that's where I want to give it to you to set that stage for you.
I mean, I find it interesting. First off, she named her kid Mike during the affair. That's terrible, but whatever. She broke the first story with AJ Brown being dissatisfied or unhappy or some form of that in Philadelphia. She had several articles on that, not articles, tweets, what have you, from sources, right? Well, coach counts as a source. And now he's linked heavily to the Patriots, and that deal might actually happen. Like, at what point does it become like, look, you have like a relationship with a reporter, or like a reporter has a relationship with a coach that's personal. So that completely conflicts with, having to vet information from your sources to see if you can release it to the public. At what point do you just become their microphone? And at that point, if you become their microphone and it's targeted at a player, that's a form of tampering. Now, is this the only case of that? No, that's probably actually most media. They get it from coaches who are buddies. Like, we all know, like, guys like LeBron, he has his reporters, like, that he talks to. Like, it's only those guys, right? Like, everyone's got their circle that helps tailor a narrative for you. It's smart. Yeah. If you're business savvy, that's how you go about it.
Yeah. You plug in that propaganda,
so
right?
This is nothing new, but I only bring it up because I find it interesting that the NFL said they aren't going to investigate. I thought they would investigate it for that reason, because they viewed it as potential tampering. But I think they realized that, they don't want to stretch that argument, because realistically, come on, man, all these guys are famous. They're all doing it. And if they all get caught more often, especially more security cameras everywhere year in year, like you're always recorded, like it's more likely you're going to get caught. More digital footprints. So they don't want to bring a lot of attention to this, because they know they're going to have to deal with this most likely in the future. There's nothing new. Sports athletes, coaches, famous sports media people, entertainers, what have you, often cheat on their spouses. Both genders. They're famous. Famous people kind of cheat. That's what it seems like. Huh? This is nothing new. This is not surprising. I'm just surprised the NFL decided not at all to investigate, because like the John Gruden emails, which I believe were on, I think they were, I don't know if they were personal emails or they were on NFL server. But let's say they were on like an NFL server. I think they fired him over it, but they were personal. There's personal views.
Yeah. No, granted, I think
Not the same thing, obviously.
no, yeah,
but
I,
in terms of
I
dealing
think
with
they
personal
got
things.
they got rid of Gruden because of the PR aspect of it, whereas with
Yeah, because
Vrabel,
his was like homophobic and racist, right? Like
yeah, I
way
think
worse, way worse.
yeah. So it's
Than
so
just like cheating sucks, but not like
yeah. So that's why
at least
that's
you're
the
not racist, homophobic.
yeah. So that's the caveat within that, obviously. But yeah, like you said, so I do think it's fascinating, like you said, there's that tampering element of it, though, where maybe part of the reason why people might look on the outside and say, well, why did she resign and Mike Vrabel, nothing's happened to him? And then, when you bring up something like that, I think that kind of provides a little bit of an answer as to why, where it's, yes, they were both having an affair with each other. And you can talk about the morality that, honestly, I don't give a fuck about that. We don't need to talk about that. Like you said, people do shit. That's how it goes. We could debate the morality. That's just how it goes. I don't want to, I don't really want to harp on that. But like you said, with the sporting part of it, the tampering part of it, where it's like, hey, she's reporting information about not only the Patriots, but players on other teams that, for example, maybe they're a free agent. They might be signing with the Patriots, or there's a player on another team's not happy, and maybe the Patriots are interested. All these insiders, like you said, have sources, and all these athletes, general managers, owners, whatever, they have their sources that plug in little propaganda pieces for them. And then, like you said, that's smart.
Very.
Very. And there was even a thing where like Robert Kraft wanted to kill the story because Robert Kraft's got his people too.
Absolutely.
So for me, look, I don't really care about the relationship part of it. I really don't. They want to fuck, let them fuck. I don't care. Doesn't impact my life in any way. That's fine. You can debate the morality of it. That's its own separate conversation. But from an NFL perspective, I do think it's fascinating that you bring that up, because that's the one element with the Mike, where I think a lot of people might talk about Mike Vrabel getting in trouble because of the optics of it. I think the more punishable offense, like you said, is that, hypothetically speaking, he would be using a reporter as his own personal mouthpiece to push an organizational agenda that furthers the New England Patriots. And that's probably the one that's more warranting of an investigation as opposed to, where his dick's been in the last 6 years.
Exactly. So I'm just surprised that there's nothing about it from the NFL, but at the same time, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's not something that makes sense for them to dwell on. At the end of the day, even if it is found to be somewhat tampering, like with the Knicks with Brunson, the penalty will be minor.
By the way, I'm glad you bring that up, because I want to make one quick I want to go back to the NBA draft real quick, because this is something I've thought about for a long time, and I think it's completely stupid.
Tell me.
So I think this is the first year, to my understanding, in the last 4 years, if I'm not mistaken, 4 or 5 years. So this NBA draft that we mentioned, the tanking controversy. So I think this is the first draft since 2021, 2022, if I'm not mistaken, where there are going to be 60 picks in a draft. Because the last, let's just call it 4, maybe I'm wrong, it could be 5. But the last 3, 4, or 5 drafts have had anywhere from 58 or 59 draft picks instead of 60. And part of the reasoning, you mentioned Jalen Brunson. So the Knicks got a second-round pick taken away from them for signing Jalen Brunson, quote unquote, because of tampering, because they negotiated outside of the agreed upon CBA window and they got docked with the draft pick. So something that never made sense to me. And I'm curious to see what you and anybody else would think about this. So it never made sense to me why you would look. I don't have a problem if you want to penalize, for example, the Knicks, and you want to take away a second-round pick for that. But why would you get rid of an entire second-round pick and just wipe that shit off the board?
I see what you mean. Why would you lower it from 60?
Wouldn't it make a lot more sense if you gave the pick? So Jalen Brunson, for example. So Jalen Brunson was with the Mavs. Wouldn't it make a lot more sense to give that draft pick to the Mavs?
The team you would last on. Essentially a team you...
Because now what you're doing is you're not actually helping the team that lost the player, and you're penalizing at least 1 or 2 draft prospects who would have gotten drafted that otherwise aren't because that spot doesn't exist anymore. So you're not actually punishing anybody really other than the prospects and the team that lost the player. And oh no, the Knicks lost the second round pick. Well, whoop de fucking do. We got Jalen Brunson, but Dallas doesn't get that second round pick. And then there's a guy out there who goes undrafted, who in an alternate universe would have been one of those draft picks.
It's nice to say you're one of 60 to get drafted.
Yeah, like
that's a lifetime achievement.
That's yeah. Well, regardless of what your career whatever
that's
happens,
a lifetime achievement.
And so it just doesn't make sense to me.
You're right. It should be 60 every year.
And then there's another
like your proposal. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah, if you go back,
really,
like last year was 59 draft picks. There have been 58 the last couple of years. Like that doesn't make sense to me. Why?
That's a good point. I never fixated on that.
And that's where my brain works. And then there's one other thing I'll fixate on real quick with the NBA draft before we transition this to our last topic of the night. But setting up a future episode here. So tomorrow is the start of the NBA G League draft combine. And then Sunday and Monday through next week is the NBA draft combine. And I'll talk about this more throughout the next days and weeks and months and years and decades until it changes probably. But I will never understand for the life of me why there's a G League combine and an NBA combine and they go to the same place.
What's the G League combine? I don't even know what that is.
So I'll explain it to you. This because I'm probably one of the few people on planet Earth who will go on YouTube and watch the G League combine.
That's dedication to the game.
I wouldn't even call it. I think it's just
dedication, man.
Degeneration, man. It's not dedication. It's degeneration. That could be the title, by the way. It's not dedication. It's degeneration.
There we go. You already found it.
Fuck it, man. But along with great taking, all these other shits. But so I'll never understand that because. So I'll caveat with this. Obviously, the NBA G League is separate from like Major League Baseball's got its own minor league thing, and that's separate. Every team's got like a AAA, AA, single A. There's no NFL minor league. There's the UFL, but that's not really a minor league affiliate per se. Hockey's got its own minor league thing, and then there's basketball. Pretty much every team now's got a G League team. Wasn't always the case, but nowadays it's kind of like that. But it doesn't make sense to me. So there's an NBA G League combine and there's a draft combine. So there's about 44 players in the G League combine. And I think there's maybe 77. I don't know the exact number. I'd have to go back but it's about 40 and 70. So 40 in the G League combine and about 70 in the NBA combine. Now, some of these guys in both combines won't even go to the draft and they'll go back to college, which is funny in its own right.
That is funny in its own right. You go to the combine, but then go back to school.
But then there will be guys that get invited to the G League combine. So basically, I mentioned 44 guys get invited to the G League combine. And then they'll have 2 days worth of scrimmages. So typically there's about 4 teams. They'll scrimmage twice. And then probably the 4 or 5 best players from those 2 days will get a call up to the NBA draft combine. And then at the NBA draft combine, there'll be 2 days worth of scrimmages. Not everybody, like the top prospects don't scrimmage. But then maybe the borderline guys, maybe there's a combination. It's either they're going to go back to school, they ran out of college eligibility, but they're not top lottery picks. So there's I'll give you an example. Jalen Williams played in the NBA combine scrimmage. And then a guy like Andrew Nemhard played in the G League combine scrimmage.
Okay.
So Jose Alvarado in the Knicks was in the G League combine many years ago. So there are some guys that get invited to the G League combine, don't even get called up from the G League combine to the NBA combine, but make the NBA. And then there's some guys that make the NBA draft combine and then don't even enter the NBA draft and they go back to school. And so for me, my caveat, and I like to talk about this over the future times, and just get to talk about this right now. This is another thing about the NBA draft that doesn't make sense to me. Why would you have 2 separate at that point? Why not just,
that makes sense.
Why not just throw them? Because who's to say that those guys, and it's happened before, so it's not like I'm speaking out my ass, but who's to say that, Because it's not like NBA guys get this shit right 100% of the time either. They whiff just like everybody else. They don't, they make mistakes as far as player evaluation. Like, why wouldn't you just, instead of having 44 in the G League combine and then 70 something in the NBA draft combine, put all 100 of them together, and then maybe instead of 4 scrimmage teams, you have 8, and then let them all play against each other and see who's the best and who's not, instead of having this weird like Hunger Games shit where you got to have the G League combine and then like 4 or 5 of them get called up to the NBA draft combine. Doesn't really make sense to me. And then there's some guys who are good enough to make both and don't even get invited to either, which is its own separate conversation.
Yeah, that's an issue in and of itself.
Which just doesn't make sense to me, because it's like, if you're talented enough to get invited to the NBA G League combine, and a lot of those guys are pretty good, why not let them get a crack? Let everybody play against each other. Who's to say that that guy's a G League guy and that guy's an NBA guy before they've even made it to the NBA? Doesn't make any sense to me. So I could do a whole shepherd spiel on that, but I just had to get that off my chest, and I appreciate you looking at me like I'm crazy, but I had to get that off my chest.
I didn't know a lot about that topic, so.
No, I mean, I don't know, man. I will talk about that more in future times, but I just kind of wanted to get that
I
out.
always appreciate the learning experience.
Well, you're giving me a lot to learn about. And speaking of learning experiences, our last topic of the night, something that we haven't really talked about much on here, I don't think at all, in 61 episodes. And who better to talk about it than the guy to my right here. I want to get your thoughts on the UFC.
I realize we never have really talked about
you
fighting.
And I have not talked about fighting on here, especially.
In general, I feel like we don't.
Yeah. I mean, you're a big UFC guy.
Yeah,
so,
I like fighting just in general.
In general. I know you're a boxing guy too.
UFC.
UFC. So I kind of want to give the floor to you. I don't really know where to take it. I'm going to leave that to you as far as your thoughts on the fighting sphere, not only UFC, boxing, all that. And just kind of get your overall synopsis and see where you want to take it. Blank canvas.
I'll say UFC right now, interesting spot. They had, in terms of their history, right, they're not an old organization. I mean, they started in the 90s. Not that long ago, right? Not long-standing, like, boxing's been around for forever, right? But this is just, UFC is a league in the sport of MMA, which is much smaller than boxing. So you're already working within those parameters. They had like their success and their stars early on. Chuck Liddell, Rampage Jackson, Andrei Arlovsky, who still fights, Conor McGregor, Max Holloway. They've had a lot of big names over the years. John Jones, Daniel Cormier, so on. I'm missing a shit ton. George St. Pierre, Kamaru Usman. They've had so many great fighters over the years, and they have like certain periods. For example, 2020, COVID, they had a big resurgence. They already had their deal with ESPN signed. That was several years left on it. They were in probably like the first few years of that deal. Dana White was as locked in as ever. And they were at one point like the only sport on TV during like that initial lockdown period. So they got a lot of extra viewership from that. And they had a lot of great fights, and they ran that high for a while. But at this point in this year, some great fights this weekend, but overall, I think the cards have been lacking. And Dana White has said on the record he's not that involved with UFC right now. And I think it shows, frankly. They also don't have a lot of stars. Like, they say McGregor's going to come back for what? After a broken leg, first time in like 5 years. So we'll see where they go long term, especially with this Paramount deal. They care less about pay-per-views. They're part of a public company. I hope they continue to like boost the product that we see and boost the sport, but I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm cautiously optimistic, but I think it'd have to be more involvement from Dana White. I know he's got his issues, but he knows how to run the UFC. We're going to fights this weekend. Hamzat versus Strickland. I think I agree with the bettors. Strickland's going to lose. I think Hamzat is going to go on the ground. He knows Strickland's not a ground guy. And Strickland's known for saying wrestling and submissions are, quote, gay. like as if you're in high school, it's like, bro, you wrestle? That's gay, bro. Like he said, it's like, what the fuck? He doesn't say it like that.
Yeah.
He says it in like a much more aggressive way, and he threatens people's lives. He's a bit out of his mind. But he can't wrestle. And I think Hamzat wrestles the fuck out of him. How much do you know about UFC? We never talk about fighting.
Honestly, probably not as much as you do. I honestly just know the big names. I mean, I know Hamza and Strickland. I mean, I don't know them that well. I just know that like the names. I can't really give much insight into like the tacticality. I remember, what was it, like 5 years ago? We watched one of the UFC cards at your old place where
In Anaheim.
in Anaheim. I remember, what was your name? It was the we watched one of the cards. I think it was the Charles Oliveira card way back
Okay.
when he won, and then the fight before that was what's her name, Zhang Wei Li against
Oh.
Rose Namajunas, where Rose within like 30 seconds or whatever,
Shit, yeah.
and Zhang Wei Li gave her a
Knocked her-
fucking kick to the head, and she dropped like a fucking pinball.
Yeah, Rose knocked out Wei Li.
Oh, Rose knocked
Yeah.
out Wei Li. There you go. One of them knocked out whatever. So yeah, Rose knocked out Zhang Wei Li, right? That's one of those things. Like I always had that tattooed in my brain because I don't watch a ton of UFC cards, but I remember that. And she just the way that she just went fucking bam.
Yeah, she dropped.
She dropped.
The
You know,
involuntary movement. Is
Oh, yeah.
brain damage.
oh for sure, CTE for sure. But like, I don't know as much as I'm not going to sit here and claim to know a whole lot. I know the big names like you mentioned McGregor and John Jones and Charles Oliveira, and then he mentioned Hamzat and Strickland, and then what's
You got
that
Tom
mother
Aspinall.
Aspinall? What's that guy?
Alex
Duplessis, Pereira,
Duplessis.
Adesanya. Who's the other guy who beat Adesanya recently?
The Russian. Oh my god.
And then there's what's that other guy too? Deporia.
Imavov.
Yeah, there you go. So like I know the names, but I don't know the tacticality of it as far as like their fight styles and I just know the big names. I don't really tend to watch much either, but I would like to maybe get into it a little bit more. And then boxing is fascinating too, obviously, because I think sometimes nowadays people kind of conflate boxing with like the Jake Paul shit, but I know there's a lot more to boxing than influencers getting CTE and beating the crap out of each other, pretending to beat the crap out of each other. But yeah, I don't know. Fighting's always been fascinating to me. It's one of those things I like to watch it, but I don't watch it as much, I guess. So I don't know as much about it.
That's fair. I do enjoy watching it, especially if you watch like the highlights and whatnot on YouTube. I like following, but especially with boxing, it's hard to follow because there's so many different belts and weight classes, and there's so much because the fighters are, for the most part, independent. They work with small promoters, but the promoters aren't the UFC. There's no such thing as that there. There's no like leagues. So everyone's independent, and the belt organizations are independent, but there's a lot of politicking that goes on and donation fees, blah, 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 and cost just to have the belt. And like, hey, can I challenge? You let me keep my current belt and go up and challenge and keep both at different weight classes? And then for the next guy, they don't let him do that. There's a lot of
Politics and
interesting
whatnot, right?
things going on. Like people got beef. Like you've heard the contract negotiations. Like Floyd Mayweather is notorious for having extended, prolonged negotiations, and in the last minute coming up with some nonsense, and the fight goes under. I think with Manny Pacquiao, like one of their contract drafts that killed one of their fights, like before it ended up happening, that fight, big pay-per-view fight they had, was like you have to do a blood test where they take out like a lot of blood, like fight day. It's like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, what do you mean? Like it was like within 24 hours, something crazy.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it's like, what do you mean I'm taking
Like,
off?
you can
blood?
take a prick, that's it.
Yeah.
You can't take actual blood from me. I'm going to go to war.
Yeah.
I'm going to get brain damage. I need all I got. What the fuck?
Oh man. Before we put a bow on this, any potential cards that would maybe fascinate you moving forward, or maybe some up and coming fighters that maybe don't have as much publicity, but maybe in a year or two they end up being in the big time, maybe set out to you as well?
I'll say cards I'm looking forward to this weekend. 329 White House card. Kind of intrigued. Not the best card. And then I'd be intrigued if Holloway does fight McGregor, because I think Holloway would beat the fuck out of him at this point. I don't think McGregor's been training.
Yeah.
I think he's living a good life. He's visibly on cocaine in every social media video. It's hilarious. Like he can't deny it. He's admitted to doing cocaine in a legal case on giving testimony. Everyone knows he's always coked out, and I don't blame him. He's coked out having fun on like his Lamborghini yacht.
That's a thing, Lamborghini yacht.
Yeah, he owned one.
That's a real thing.
That's a real thing.
Oh shit,
he got it.
Damn, that's how you know you got money.
Wearing like a $200,000 watch for no reason.
Oh yeah, listen, I wouldn't be
drunk as hell with women around you. I mean, that's his life.
I wouldn't be trained,
especially with his ego like that. He loves that shit.
I wouldn't be trained.
I don't think he's training. I don't think he's burning the midnight oil when that's your job. Like that's what you're doing.
That's his job right now. It's a Lamborghini yacht, right?
Yeah. So yeah. I don't.
Okay.
I don't know if I'll be intrigued by it, but in general, I like all the heavy. I don't have all the fights in front of me, but I try to tune in for title fights. I might tune in, like watch it, usually after the fact. But if it's a really good card, I'll try to like set some time aside, see if I can watch it live. Doesn't always work, especially now to start at 6 p.m. a little earlier. I'm like, I'm not watching that. But on Paramount Plus, like you can just turn on at night, like rewind it, and just skip.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, 'cause I already had Paramount Plus, so that's nice.
All right. Well, before we put a bow on this, OKC's up 120 to 105. About to wrap it up. Less than 2 minutes to go. Jared McCain for 3. Bucket up by 18. That's a dagger. If it already wasn't daggered before, which it probably was a long time before that. Any concluding thoughts, my man?
Hey, man, always appreciate you having me on.
No, I appreciate you, man. We're going to get this going, especially after the draft lottery. We're going to come back and with your Knicks, hopefully, knock on wood, keeping the ball rolling in the playoffs.
That's what we're hoping for.
Yeah, listen, I don't want to jinx anything. So they're up 2-0. I'm not going to say anything. We'll see how it plays out. But it's been a pleasure, man. I appreciate you. My name is Ryan. To my right, Arman. It's been a absolute pleasure. Best one together yet till the next one. I'm looking forward to running it back real soon. It's been the Unfiltered Boy. Till next time, stay safe out there. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, but if you do, enjoy it.